The Power of Vulnerable Leadership, Brené Brown. From the moment she steps into the room, Emma feels the familiar rush of adrenaline. Today she's leading the quarterly strategy session for her fast-growing startup. The stakes are high. Investors expect deliverables. Her team looks to her for direction, and every slide she presents carries the weight of potential success or failure. Yet as she clicks to the first slide, her hands tremble. It isn't the numbers that scare her. It's the fear of looking weak in front of the people she depends on. She takes a breath, remembers the words she studied the night before. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. Brené Brown's research taught Emma that true leadership begins not with perfect poise but with honest humanity. So she begins differently this quarter. "I want to tell you all something I've been wrestling with," she says, voice steady. The room quiets. "I've been worried we're moving too fast, so focused on growth that we risk losing sight of why we started." She shares how, at home the previous evening, she felt a knot in her chest imagining a failed launch, disappointed customers, a team disillusioned by broken promises. Admitting that anxiety on a Monday morning feels counterintuitive, leaders must be strong, right? But she presses on. "I need your help to keep us true to our values. If I falter, call me out. If you see us drifting, remind me to slow down." In that moment, something shifts. The usual guarded posture around the table dissolves. Instead of nodding politely, her COO, Marcus, leans forward. "I appreciate your honesty. I've had the same worry, but didn't know how to bring it up." The head of engineering, Priya, adds, "This is exactly why I joined this company, because you lead with your whole self, not just the bottom line." Vulnerability, Emma realizes, isn't a liability. It's the foundation of trust. Weeks later, on a crisp autumn morning, Emma walks into the office to find a wall of truth tacked to the common area. Team members have written anonymous notes, fears, doubts, hopes. One reads, "I feel overwhelmed by my workload and afraid to ask for help." Another says, "I wonder if our mission still resonates with our customer base." Emma pins her own note at the top. "I fear I'm not enough. For the team, for our investors, for our vision." She stands back and admires the display. The wall is more than confessions. It's an invitation to collective courage. She introduces weekly vulnerability circles, in which small groups share real challenges, missed deadlines, personal stress, miscommunications. Some meetings start awkwardly, stilted voices, nervous laughter. But by the third session, the group dynamism deepens. When Carlos from marketing admits he felt sidelined on the last campaign, the others listen without judgment and propose a joint workshop. When Priya reveals she's juggling a sick parent and burnout, Emma adjusts deadlines and brings in temporary support. Every admission spawns solutions and connection. Brené Brown's work shows that vulnerability builds resilience. By facing discomfort together, teams develop the agility to adapt and innovate. Emma sees it firsthand when a major client threatens to pull their contract unless the product roadmap shifts dramatically. Instead of hiding panic, she calls an all-hands meeting. She acknowledges the gravity, invites ideas, and delegates a rapid response task force. 2 days later, they present a revised plan that excites the client, turning a crisis into collaboration. Later that year, Emma is invited to speak at a leadership conference on the power of vulnerable leadership. Backstage, she feels the familiar butterflies. She knows the audience expects polished confidence, bulletproof answers. Instead, she steers her talk toward humility. "I stand here not as someone who has it all figured out," she tells them, "but as someone who's learned that we grow strongest when we embrace our cracks." She tells the story of her first big fundraising pitch, when her investor nervously asked about her experience. Instead of bluffing competence, she admitted she was a first-time CEO, that she'd learned more from failures than successes, and that she needed a partner who believed in her potential as much as her vision. That honesty, she says, landed the deal. The room bursts into applause, not for her revenue numbers, but for the courage to be real. Afterwards, a woman approaches Emma with tears in her eyes. "I've spent my career hiding my mistakes, terrified I'd be exposed as a fraud," she confesses. "But you've shown me that admitting imperfection can be our greatest strength." Emma pulls her into a hug, feeling the transformative ripple of vulnerability extend far beyond her own circle. Back at the office, the culture shift is unmistakable. Recruitment messaging highlights psychological safety. Candidates ask about the wall of truth and vulnerability circles. Employee engagement scores climb. When a competitor launches a similar product at a lower price, the team doesn't panic or retreat behind closed doors. They convene an open forum, share frustrations, and brainstorm ways to add unique value. The result? A co-created feature suite that delights customers and outpaces the competition. In one instance, a junior designer named Maya shares a rough mock-up of an experimental user interface, knowing it's unpolished. Instead of dismissing it, the design lead and engineers seize the concept, iterate together, and launch it as a beta feature. What could have been a dismissed green light becomes one of the product's signature strengths. Maya's willingness to be seen as imperfect catalyzed a breakthrough. Vulnerable leadership also reshapes Emma's personal life. She begins weekly check-ins not only with colleagues, but with her partner and closest friends. She admits when she's overwhelmed, asks for support, and sets boundaries around her time. She stops equating vulnerability with weakness, recognizing it as the expression of her deepest values: honesty, connection, and courage. At home, her partner notices the change. "I feel closer to you," they say one evening, "because you let me into your world more fully." Emma smiles, realizing that the lessons of vulnerability transcend boardrooms. They are as vital in relationships, communities, and everyday interactions as they are in high-stakes business decisions. As the year draws to a close, Emma hosts an end-of-year reflection retreat. In a circle of softly lit lanterns, each team member shares one thing they're proud of and one thing they struggled with. The stories flow. A marketing lead recounts a failed campaign-turned-lesson. An engineer shares the fear of public speaking before a demo. The COO admits imposter syndrome. Emma shares her own tender moment, the time she froze in an investor pitch and felt certain she'd lost everything, until someone in the room offered a gentle nod, reminding her that worth isn't measured in perfunctory success. With every confession, the circle grows tighter, the bonds stronger. They end by naming one value they'll carry into the next year: authenticity, courage, compassion. Emma's heart swells with gratitude. The retreat embodies the essence of Brené Brown's insight that true belonging can only flourish when we dare to show up and be seen. On the first day of the new year, Emma sends the team a simple message: let's continue leading with our hearts on our sleeves. The world needs more brave leaders who admit their fears, own their stories, and invite others to do the same. She knows there will be setbacks, inevitable missteps that test their resolve. But she also knows they have a secret weapon: vulnerability, not as a mask of weakness, but as a demonstration of strength, the power to connect, to innovate, and to inspire. Vulnerable leadership, she reflects, is never about oversharing or lack of boundaries. It's about the courage to open up just enough to build trust, the wisdom to know which parts of ourselves to reveal, and the willingness to listen with empathy. It's about leading from the heart as much as from the mind. As Emma steps into her office, she glances at the wall of truth, now filled with new insights and confessions. She touches one note: "I've learned to ask for help." She smiles, knowing that this simple admission, the admission that none of us has to go it alone, is the cornerstone of a culture that thrives on authenticity. And with that, she opens her laptop and begins another day of leading with courage, compassion, and unwavering humanity, knowing that in vulnerability lies the truest form of strength.